Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that, like Tommy Edman, keeps finding new ways to be broken inside. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Vince Samorca.
Hey, Nate H.
That opening bit came to us via text message. If you have an idea and want to contribute to the opening bits, text or leave us a voicemail at 848-48-BIRDS. Thank you to the listener who sent that. It legitimately made me laugh, and it arrived like 10 minutes before we started recording. So it was perfect timing, and I've been laughing about it the entire time. Whatever asshole out there, put a mirror on us and our brokenness.
I feel seen.
How you doing, Hambone?
Yeah, man. It's
Wow,
just
good
fine.
content.
No, I'm hanging it and banging it, baby. Just feeling great. I don't like to brag on pod about how, it's just everything's coming up, Benny. It's been great.
Wow.
What do you want me to say?
Well, things may be coming up for you now, but soon will be your demise. I think we need to hash out
What?
a few. I think we need to hash out a few details, Hambone. You have directly challenged me to a in-person race, and it's coming into focus.
Yeah.
I think we've got a date. So you are traveling to St. Louis the weekend
At a certain point in time.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I don't want to dox your visit to St. Louis in case someone may be camping out at the airport.
Some kooks out there.
But you'll be traveling to St. Louis circa the weekend of the 10th for our yearly friend weekend down at the lake. And there's been discussion about doing a friendly 5K the morning before we head down there.
Yes.
And I think we make it less friendly, and I think it is there that we settle the score. And we race in person through my neighborhood.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Obviously, you have home field advantage. I will have the advantage of being me, which is pretty sick, and the elevation. So, yeah, 100% down for that. Let's go.
Okay, one more thing to add. You got to wear the Dansby Swanson shirt
While I run.
while you run.
Okay.
We never settled on the stakes of the shirt.
Yeah.
And I think it has to matter. So it's either that or like something else, like a game that we go to together. But we don't know when that's going to happen. So I think you got to wear the Dansby Swanson shirt while we race.
Okay. I agree to your terms. I am curious of how I can perform athletically in a medium polyester shirt. So hopefully we do the race early
Here
in the
come
day.
the excuses already.
Well,
they're already pouring in.
Having purchased the shirt for the person we'll be borrowing it from, I know this shirt very well, and it's going to be, I'm a large boy. It's going to be like looking at a bratwurst, a cased meat, running through your neighborhood. So it's not going to be great. And hopefully, knowing me, I'll fight through it. I'll come out victorious. Everything will be fine. But just my in time, real live reaction is, that doesn't sound good.
I guess I suppose we should also get permission from the shirt owner that you could basically use it as a bratwurst casing, because I suspect that it will be forever unclean after this moment.
Yeah.
But
we'll figure that part out off pod, Nate. We'll talk about that off pod.
So decision pending.
Okay.
But the framework of the deal is in place.
Sounds good.
And if we want, we've got a little bit of time. If we want to develop some new stakes, don't get excited. I know I said stakes. If we want to do some new stakes for this race as well.
Yeah, well, my initial thought is that the winner gets the other person has to make the mistake at this little friends weekend that we're having. Um, and I think that
That's
I would like to have the steak served to me. I would like to be wearing a special hat of some kind. And I think that the loser will have to tuck in the winner's napkin into their shirt.
wow. So special hat. I want to dig in on this a little bit. What are you picturing when you say special hat?
So in my mind's eye, I saw like a birthday hat, like some type of like a conical type celebration hat. But I wanted to expand it to just I think a special hat, a hat that you look at that person sitting down, about to cut into their steak with a napkin tucked into their shirt that they did not put there by themselves, and you say, "Wow, that is a winner. I am looking at a winner right now."
Yeah.
So it just has to evoke that
Okay.
emotion.
Uh-huh. Um, so the way this is going to work is we're basically going to do the race and then very shortly after head to the lake. So what this basically supposes is that we're both going to need to be prepared to provide the other person with a special hat, a steak, and a bib. Is that
Yeah.
what you're
We can workshop
okay.
it. That was just the first thing that came to
We
my mind, and I think it's a good
uh-huh.
idea.
Uh-huh. So far I see no holes. I'm just trying to make sure I understand it correctly.
Yeah, and it's obviously there's some openness to interpretation there. So I think however you want
Uh-huh.
it to flesh out is fine. But I think that that's a good idea, and yeah, I submit.
Okay. All right. The deal has been struck. I think it's August 9th. We ride.
All right.
Loser has to make the other person a steak, a special hat, and tuck their napkin in like a little bib.
I would like. I'm still down for this idea, but I will say, just thinking about it a little bit more, eating a steak in the August heat of St. Louis doesn't sound awesome, but I stand by it. I stand by it.
Okay. All right. Well, we got a couple months to figure this out.
All right.
But I hope you've continued your training.
I haven't ran since the 5K, so I'll pick that back up.
Actually, I guess I should say I hope you have not completed your training, and
I
will begin
your team
implementing multiple.
We know you hate yourself.
I'm going to start some sabotage.
Okay.
I'm going to make you a little poisoned Pikachu slider.
I mean, I would still eat it. It would work on me. If you want to poison me, put it in a cheeseburger. It'll work. I will die. I will get sick. It will happen.
I could be like, Ben, I made you these poison cheeseburgers. And you'd be like, well, it's a cheeseburger.
I can handle it. It'll be fine.
It's a living. Yeah. All right. Well, there we go. More to come on this. We'll talk about it as we get closer and closer to it. But Hambone, we got a lot of baseball to talk about.
Oh, boy. Big show, Nate. Big show.
What is this? A wrestler circa 1998? This is a big show. Yeah, I just like completely stopped my own train of thought with a bad pull there. Last week we were both pretty. I felt like it was a downer episode. We were both pretty down on the Cardinals offense.
Sure.
We were feeling not too great about things. Might have been because the Cardinals had just split a series at home against the Rockies. Right. But here we are as the rain delay doubleheader is about to start. The Cardinals are in sole position of a wild card spot and have the best record that they've had all season.
Over a year, right? Like multiple years at this point.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're 3 games over 500, which I don't think they ever touched last year. I guess we could have done any research on this, but either way, it's either the best record they've had in a year and a half or, right around it.
Right.
We said from the beginning that this is a huge stretch of lower competition games, and the Cardinals basically needed to come out of this in a playoff spot or very, very close to really have a shot as the back half gets considerably more difficult. But they did win a tight, interesting game against the Atlanta Braves, who are not the Atlanta Braves of last year, but they are still, we broke them down last week. They are still a very, very good team, the type of team you have to beat if you want to have a successful season. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like feeling pretty good. There's some good things happening right now and some good news happening, though not all good news, but some good things are happening. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, the recent success is nice. Being over 500 is very nice. A little bit of a streak going on right now is also fantastic. The offense being powered by Burley and Donovan is good. The problem with and I want to feel more positive than I do. But it just feels a little like smoke and mirrors going on right now. I'm really believing in Mason Wynn. I'm really believing in Sonny Gray, and everyone else. I am like feeling generally good about it, but like I don't know. I'm just like I feel like I need to burn some sage or something. I just have this like feeling in the back of my head, and maybe it's just because I've been beaten up a little bit over the past year and a half of Cardinals baseball. But it's hard to say that this is clearly the best they've played in a while. And the team is doing the thing. The team is doing the thing that John Mozeliak always needs it to do, where it's like hitting that 80th, 90th percentile outcome. Like most of like the 20 guys are hitting that outcome right now. And unfortunately, like two of the biggest guys that aren't are the two best players on the team, but that's okay.
Sure.
For the time being. So yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling a little weary. It's really nice to have some good health news on the horizon or already happening. That's making me feel a little more confident in it, but I feel confused. But excited.
Yeah. I think it's fair to maintain our healthy dose of skepticism. I think that's very fair. We've had a year and a half of basically, mediocre, if not downright bad Cardinal baseball. Right. And it's been a lot better over the last month and a half. But it's still the same team. So is it a hot streak or is it a regression to what the team actually should have been all season? And last year was just and maybe should have been last year if not for just compounding bad luck and a lot of little things that added up. I don't know. I wanted to ask you, are you buying the narrative? Have you seen this? Since the Ali Marmol ejection, the Cardinals have the best record in the NL.
Am I buying the narrative? No, I'm not.
You don't think him getting kicked out changed the entire course of the season?
That's fun. Yeah. And like, I think there's a story in New York right now that Grimace changed the outcome of the Mets. And yeah, sure. Yeah, whatever.
Was that weird for you to see yourself all over New York content and to be seen as the sort of the source of inspiration for the New York Mets?
If I really wish I wasn't wearing a purple shirt as we're recording right now. And I do have a Grimace hat within arm's reach that I could put on. So I have absolutely nothing to say to that. I'm going to drive right past it. Narrative, fun. What I really think is happening is that Alec Burleson's 2-ish years of bad luck have kind of like that is finally regressing to the mean, and it's doing it it's out of control how good he has been recently. Every ball he touches seems to land or go out of the ballpark, which is really great. Donnie being healthy and hitting the ball around has been really great. Mason Wynn is a budding superstar. That's happening. We are getting performance out of the catching position. And Matt Carpenter is a relevant major league hitter in the month of June. So, no, I don't think any of that narrative bullshit is anything to latch onto. I think that it is kind of a regression to the mean in a positive way. I also think that like narrative. Sonny Gray is one of the best pitchers in the National League right now. Sonny Gray is, assuming health, is going to be a Cy Young candidate. Might not win, that's fine, but he will garner votes. He might get top 5 votes. It seems highly likely.
We're only halfway through, and his recent stretch, like, who knows? But if he keeps up this sort of performance, not necessarily carrying a perfect game into the 7th every time, but like this type of performance, he could win. I don't think there's anyone in the NL that is completely running away with it. All the Phillies pitchers are obviously having incredible seasons, but I think you could slot Sonny Gray right in there.
And we haven't given, I don't think this podcast has really properly recognized Kyle Gibson's performance this season. I mean, he's been better than I thought he was going to be. The fact that he's running an under 4 ERA, providing bulk innings, actually striking some guys out more than I thought. That sweeper has turned out to be a lot more deadly than I had anticipated it. Now, I am not particularly enthused watching Kyle Gibson pitch. It is not aesthetically pleasing or exciting, but it is effective, and that is what's important. So, no, I don't. I think that the team has some good players who are performing well and maybe even a little above their weight class right now, and I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly been more fun,
without a doubt.
We are we say over and over and over, we are an optimistic podcast. And while that has been difficult at times to maintain that, I got to say, it's just been a lot. It's been really nice to just have like winning, at least some degree of consistent winning over the last month and a half. And frankly, again, they've been the best team in the NL over the last month as far as the record shows. So no fan base in the NL has seen more wins than we have as a Cardinals fan base. And so who knows if this is going to sustain this way? Probably not that win percentage. But what type of play we're going to get for the next 3 months, but at least we are a weekly podcast. We absolutely ride the wave. And so for this moment, for this week, let's enjoy the wave. And even if you're not a fan of the wave, let's enjoy the wave. Yikes. And enjoy watching it. We've got the doubleheader. Love a doubleheader. It's a super rainy day again here in St. Louis. We'll see how this doubleheader actually plays out. But this should be a fun day of baseball. And maybe interesting. Be kind of telling to see how they do in back-to-back games against the Braves, because the game they did win was a bit of a nail biter.
Yeah, not an easy team to beat twice, especially twice in one day. But when you look at, I think the way that the Cardinals lineup is constructed today on Wednesday, when you have Wynn and Burley and Contreras starting off, like I think. Well, first off, I never thought that would be an arrangement that the Cardinals had this year, that 1, 2, 3 would be those 3 players. But you have to feel really good about that right now. It's 3 players doing 3 very different things very successfully. I'm anticipating Willson to come back kind of, and maybe he's not putting up MVP level numbers because I think he was on a streak before he went down that was nobody saw that keeping up.
Well, yeah, he had a 950 OPS when he went down, and I don't think we're projecting that to be his end of season number.
No, I mean, I want to be mad at it. That would be great. That would be incredible and shocking. But he's obviously going to be a huge boon. And with your 2 big guys, big all-stars, just not being all-stars this season, he is super necessary. I feel like I was kind of poo-pooing the team a little bit earlier. So I am feeling confident about the team. It's just there are holes. Whichever team has holes in baseball. But we should feel good about where they are.
Yeah, at least better. I think we should feel better. So yeah, a few bits we wanted to talk about. Well, we've tracked playoff odds on this show, and man, what were they like at the lowest? It was something down to like
12 or 13%, something like that.
I was thinking somewhere around there. And according to Fangraphs, they're now up to a 46.1% playoff odds. So basically a coin flip, which, I think if anything that highlights that like playoff odds like kind of don't mean anything for for the majority of the season, just like looking at like win probabilities of a game in like the first or second inning, it's like, yeah, of course, the person who's in the lead has the highest odds, but there's so much left that it can change much quicker than you would think. A 12% odds feels, basically done. And now they're up to a coin flip. But I mean, still, you like to see that number go up, so we'll see. I guess we'll continue to look at that, but I think that highlights the change that we've seen in the Cardinals' fortune in the last month.
Right. Well, and it's also like, I think it speaks more to what the hell is going on in the National League Central than anything else. Like the Cubs in Cincinnati are now essentially at the bottom of the barrel. They're not that far away from the Cardinals right now. Pittsburgh was at the bottom. Now they're right behind the Cardinals. Like these teams are so closely matched up on a talent level that I would not be surprised if this flips a couple more times throughout the season, unless one of these teams actually adds to their big league roster and makes a real change and just goes on a run. Even the Brewers, who are 5.5 games ahead of the Cardinals right now, all it's going to take them is a bad week or two or a great week or two to pull away. Or come right back to the pack, with the Cardinals kind of staying where they're at. So I think that those numbers are relevant, but maybe in a crappy National League Central where there are no great teams, it feels a little too fluid. But it's all like, I don't know. I wouldn't have predicted that the Cubbies would be down where they're at right now, or Cincinnati, or even Pittsburgh. Like Pittsburgh is getting better and better pitching wise, but their offense is impossible to predict right now. These teams are weird and broken and not fully realized.
Yeah, most of them are all in some stage of a rebuild, right? At least I think of the Cubs, the Reds, and the Pirates are all in what I think they would consider themselves was a year in which there's many outcomes where they do well and they actually make the playoffs, but it was just as likely that they miss. And this is just another year in the rebuild. Right. And there's still half a season to go. But it does seem pretty hard to project any of those teams really making a run at the Central. Now the wild card, it's just a huge swamp of every team that's, right around 500. So it's kind of anyone's game there. But at this point, with the Cubs being 10 games back of the Brewers, that does start to feel a little more out of reach. But as Cardinal fans know, 10 games back can be overcome even in a single month. So it's still it's still technically really anyone's game.
Expanded playoffs are dumb.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. I think it'll get really interesting. I've talked about it on the show a bunch. I think even some last week. I think it's pretty clear that the league is marching towards a 2-league system.
Yeah.
Right. And it'll be a lot
getting
harder.
rid of divisions, you mean?
Getting rid of divisions. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. And that's, it's almost, we might as well be there now. They're like almost irrelevant except for the winners of the divisions. And the Brewers would be there either way. So there's no real issue right now.
Right. With the Central looks like one team whoever wins it will likely have a pretty good record. They're not going to be the best record in the league. It'll probably be like the third or fourth best record. But will be a pretty good record, right? It won't be one of those things where like an 83 win team wins the Central.
There is a chance that getting rid of divisions makes it so that the Cardinals are forced to be more competitive.
Well, I think that would be part of the argument for it, right? Is that you can't, it no longer do you just look at 4 other teams and say, I just got to beat those 4 teams. You'd be looking at a group of 15 or possibly 16 teams and saying, I need to be in the top 6 or maybe 8 of those. And you can't just rely on 4 other mid-market teams to be bad to get the playoffs. Now, there's sort of a counter to that, which is like, that might not help parity in the league. Like right now, you guarantee an NL Central, which is pretty much, other than Chicago, all mid-market teams. From a fan's perspective, that guarantees some like mid-market representation generally. But I don't know how much the league actually cares about that. And I think single league, all in, top 6 or whatever get in, does make it a more fair playoff system.
Yeah.
With the balanced schedules and everything.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So, I don't know. What other Cardinal notes do you want to hit on?
We talked about Sonny Gray. Willson Contreras is back. I think we can just hit that again. Very excited to see him back. Obviously, Ivan Herrera has gone down. He's been placed on the IL retroactive to June 19th on the 10-day IL with lower back tightness. So Pedro Pages is the 3-catcher problem is now just 2 catchers.
Funny how that tends to work itself out, huh?
Really quickly there. So Willson Contreras and Pages kind of tag teaming the role together. I am curious, of course, of how the Cardinals are going to use Willson in the DH catching role and what share of catching that he's going to get with Pages, who's obviously a very talented defensive catcher behind the plate. They clearly like him, and he's got a little bit of thump. We talked about that. So, but yeah, it's just great to have Willson back. I am excited to see, with the team playing like a real baseball team and Willson Contreras' fiery intensity and likability and he's interesting to watch. Thank God.
It certainly helps.
Certainly helps. I'm just very excited to see that, and excited to see Willson maybe get hot on a team that doesn't suck ass. Because that's kind of been the story of his Cardinals career so far. And man, I'd really like to see that turn around.
Yeah, the team be good around him when he's good. Because, he had a monster second half last year, and it was
for nothing.
For nothing, basically.
Yeah.
And then, he was the best hitter on the team before he went down, and that was when the team was particularly bad.
So get ready for the narrative, if the Cardinals dip again, that it is all Willson Contreras' fault.
Don't call for that. I am curious to see how they balance out the playing time. I would, if I had been betting on this, I would have thought that he'd come back at, say, like 75% DH and 25% catcher, but he's caught both the games now that he's been in.
Yeah.
I assume he's going to DH in the evening game, or maybe just completely sit. But I mean, dude's a gamer. It's pretty impressive. He gets a 10-week, expectation for his injury, and he comes back in 6.5. It's pretty awesome, and it reminded me of Pujols. Remember back in the day when he broke his arm and it felt like he was back in a week. I know it was way more than that, but it was another significantly expectations defying return. I hope I don't want to put this out there, but I hope that Willson isn't just pressing and coming back, sooner than he should, just for the sake of meeting his own high intensity expectations. But
a broken bone is kind of like a binary thing, right? You can't lie about that. Either the bone is no longer broken or it continues to be broken, and we can look at it. So
I have to imagine there's some lingering soreness and game readiness and whatnot that you could just be pushing through. But I'm assuming that the medical staff wouldn't clear him if they scanned it and there's still a break there. So I think we could
floppy arms and ugh, God. Okay.
I'm good, coach. Put me in. Arm just bent at a 90-degree angle in the middle of the wrist.
Oh man, those, I don't like UFC because it grosses me out. And it's just too much for me. But you ever see those videos where the guys, they're kicking each other in the shin, and then the shin wraps around the other guy's shin, and then he goes back to step on it because he doesn't realize it's broken yet, and it just folds underneath the weight of his body?
No, I've not watched anything like that, and I don't intend to.
I'll send you some clips, dude.
No, don't. I'm not gonna watch it. This is the same sort of thing whenever someone's like, oh, this is gross. Smell this. I'm like, no, I'm not going to smell that. You just said it's gross. I don't want to watch that. I don't want to smell that. Get that
I'll
shit
send
away
you some
from
clips. Hey, out there on the Twitterverse, just add us. If you got any nasty UFC broken bone
Don't
videos,
do this.
tag us.
Block.
We won't block you. Let's gross Nate out. I won't watch him though. It's just for Nate.
I've never had that in me. Like, we came up in the age of the growth of the internet, and there was obviously a big point when like that was what everybody was doing on the internet, looking at shit like that, rotten.com and whatnot. And I've never had that in me. I've never liked wanting to. Obviously I've seen stuff like that, that you can't avoid it entirely, but I'm like never like, oh, I want to watch this.
Yeah, I'm not seeking it out, but the internet and TV and
I don't know, you're a little freak. I bet you're watching. Ooh, I love the way his ankle wraps around his ankle. It's cute.
It's really not.
Yeah. Have you ever broken a bone?
I've broken almost all my fingers and a good chunk of toes. I have not broken a major
good chunk of toes
bone yet. Yeah. One time I was on a trampoline and I was doing some backside varial McTwists and to a slam dunk.
The only McTwist is fucking a McDonald's order.
Boom! Do they sell a McTwist?
I don't know. It sounds like it's something.
They should. Yeah. And I landed wrong and I broke 4 toes on the same foot at the same time. It was terrible. But yeah, no, nothing major.
Trampolines are a menace. We had one, as you know, when I was a kid, and one time I tried to like run off the trampoline. Pretty common. You run, you plant your foot on like the bar on the outside and just sort of jump off of it. And I just straight missed the bar and my leg went through the gap, but my body still went forward. And I thought I broke my knee, because I did like a fall forward sort of thing, but my leg stayed where it was. And it was pretty horrible, but I did not. And I might have broken a toe one time. Like when I was a lot younger, I tried to slide down a metal staircase, like a spiral staircase banister, and went all the way down. And at the very bottom, it was just my toe connected with the metal banister. And I thought I broke it, and I might have, but who knows? Yeah. But no, I've also,
you've never broken anything.
I don't think so. Not that I can, really remember.
We're going to fix that.
Come at me, bitch. I drink my milk, Hambone.
Milk is disgusting.
Yeah, milk is a kid's drink. I went like 10 years without having, milk at all in the house, and then now I have to buy like gallons a week.
Your children are disgusting. You're disgusting.
It's good for you.
Is it?
Well, I don't know. I think so.
All right.
Big Dairy, at least, makes us think so. The kids like it.
Just imagine a cow sitting behind a desk somewhere.
Yeah. Are cows pro people drinking milk?
They love getting milk.
I think they probably do, but I don't know everything surrounding it probably seems like complete hell. So I don't know.
Yeah, factory farming is bad. I'll be the first one to say it.
Yeah. This is a topic we are both prepared to talk eloquently about. All right, let's talk about some news. We've touched on a little bit of it. Ivan has been placed retroactive to June 19th on the 10-day IL with lower back tightness. I've not seen a timeline yet, but I imagine the Cardinals are going to take their time with this, as previously discussed. We've got 3 catchers. I'm sure they don't want to rush Ivan back.
No, it's convenient timing, obviously, with Willson coming back and everything like that. But Ivan was hitting again.
Yeah.
And I see the future of Ivan. It's starting to show itself. I think that his defense has gotten a little crisper. I think we need to see a little more power from him so he doesn't go the Kinsler route. But I am buying what he's selling. I think it's been great. I'm excited for him to get healthy. And he was so kind to time his injury in this way. So I do wonder if like Willson wasn't feeling better and Willson wasn't back so quickly if Ivan would even be on the IL for this stint. Seems like a little convenient, but go get healthy, young man, and come right back, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Also in well, let's stick with the injuries, the before we get to the people coming back. We also spent quite a while last week talking about Steven Matz, and that has also immediately solved itself. It's amazing how much stuff can change in a week. We had quite a discussion on what do the Cardinals do with Steven Matz. Seemed like they're aiming for him to be in the rotation, and we're pretty torn on that. But he has suffered a setback, and he's not even going to throw for a couple weeks. And then that means, assuming that in a couple weeks when he throws again, he has no problems, that is the restart of the full throwing program, which can take another 2 to 4 weeks, depending on his own development and how his body responds. So essentially, it's now 4 to 6 weeks before we see Steven Matz, assuming no further setback. So kind of just punts it down the road. I mean, that's a long enough time. That's essentially after the All-Star break. And this could be a fundamentally different team by that time. That's probably after the trade deadline even. So
that's just what I was going to bring up. I think that's the more important deadline that this pushes us into. And I think that it kind of makes the conversation clear that the Cardinals do need to go seek out outside help for starting pitching help or some type of pitching help or long relief, something like that. But you no longer have this match-shaped specter over your head if you're John Mozeliak, and he's not coming back. And I think if you are thinking that he is going to come back and be healthy even post all these dates, then I think it's foolish. And you need to plan as though he will never pitch in this year again. That was a weird way to frame that, but
he will never pitch this year again. I guess it's I think that's still correct, but it just feels
it's stupid. It was poorly worded. But you know what I mean. It is unlikely that Steven Matz pitches in 2024.
I think you have to operate under that expectation. I think and anything else is is gravy.
I said this last week and I'll say it again. I think having him, even considering him being a starter anymore, is foolish. It's just wasting our time at this point.
So I think that this, like, one almost concrete outcome from this is I think it essentially takes him out of being a starter for the rest of this year, because it's one thing to have a guy come back in the middle of June. You say, well, we're going to stretch him out over the summer and he'll be a fully competent starter again by August and into the stretch run and whatnot, which you could kind of foresee, like 90th percentile outcome, of course, but that is what it is. That there's some logic to that. But if now we're going to say he's not even going to come back until maybe the beginning of August, what is that, 8, 9 maybe starts left if he just hit the ground running right back into the rotation? But probably he wouldn't. He'd need to come in slower. And then now, is it worth it to try to get him back as a starter by September?
And is he going to be good?
And is he going to be? Well, that's the whole other thing of it too. Like, none of it even matters. Like, it's one thing to talk about stretched out and et cetera. It's another thing to say, like, will he even be able to get stretched out, or is he going to get shelled in the second inning and it's just going to be a complete failure? So I think what this likely means is what you were saying from the beginning, is that if he comes back, it's going to be in the bullpen, and that might actually be good. So I guess we'll see. But
I'm not
had
the most sustained success in the bullpen, so it just makes the most sense to me. That is the lever I would pull if I was Mo and co.
Yeah. So another, as hinted in the intro, again, thanks to the listener for the great intro bit. Tommy Edman, during his rehab, sprained his ankle. So again, I don't really know who Tommy Edman is. This is a name I've been hearing a lot recently, but I don't remember a Tommy Edman. Do you know a Tommy Edman?
Well, he used to be my son.
Damn.
And he's since abandoned me.
He left you.
I've abandoned my boy.
My boy.
But I get it though. Like, I don't know. We have Siani, we have Carlson. Do we? Of course, we need Tommy Edman.
Yeah,
but he's just been such a non-factor for so long that it is.
Yeah.
What have you done for me lately? I do kind of forget about you, even though he is my son. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything positive to say about this. Obviously, injuries are not the player's fault.
Yeah.
And I think that if Tommy had not blown his ankle up and his wrist up, that we would see him. And it's not his fault. And I'm trying to not be emotional about this. And it's fine. Hope you get better, Tommy. It'd be great to have you. I am at this point kind of wondering, like, well, what is a Tommy Edman even when he does get healthy?
Right.
He's got a broken wrist that he's healing back from. We know that those injuries can have a really long tail on them as far as getting back to normal, especially from a power side, which is not his strength in the first place. And ankles are also very important for speedy shortstop center field combo types. So it's really hard to feel good about this.
This news broke right before we started recording, and I haven't seen any follow-up yet. So I haven't seen the perceived severity of it.
Right.
A sprained ankle can be a lot of different things, right? It can be, it's another 5 days on. He's shut down for a few days and he's fine. It can be, we've added 2 months to his rehab, right?
Yeah.
So that will be a huge indicator because he is working his way back and he's relatively close to being back. And now this is, a setback, but it may or may not be large. So we'll have more information, probably a lot more by time we're recording again next week. But yeah, how does he fit in on this team? What does a return Tommy Edman even look like considering these injuries? What does his playing time look like? I don't know. It's a complicated problem. And with the Cardinals playing relatively well, it's a lot less easy to just be like, let's kick out Siani and let Tommy Edman get a couple weeks of reps just to get him back to where he was, because the team's winning and Siani is a part of that winning. And you don't want to mess with it's taken a year and a half to get back to a team that is playing consistently well. And so I'd be a little cautious about just throwing in major unknowns like that right now.
Yeah, and Siani is a part of the winning team, isn't he? He is a weird nut to crack, because obviously, like, the offense, I know Brad Thompson, I don't know what, he's kind of annoying the shit out of me this year. And he's just constantly talking about how well Siani can handle the bat. And I think I know what he means. And I think by that, he means that he can bunt sometimes. But I'm tired of hearing it. The guy is not a great hitter. That's okay. He is a fantastic center fielder. I think even this week, he's made 3 or 4 plays I can think of off the top of my head that I don't think, maybe
anyone
only
else?
Victor Scott can make. Now he is hitting better than Victor Scott was hitting, so I'm not calling for anything, but he is. Let's be serious. He is hitting .217 with a .259 on base percentage.
Yeah,
a 56 OPS plus, meaning that he is half of an average major leaguer.
Yeah, well, he's kind of been
defense has been good though.
He's almost like opposite Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah,
because if you look at it, Siani has put up 0.7 FWAR, which over his relatively limited play time, although that's obviously growing, but he's at 171 plate appearances.
Right.
So if you actually extrapolate that all over a full season, he's a 2.5-ish win player, which is above league average, which is great. But it is exclusively at in defense, and he is significantly harming the team offensively. Handle the bat. Maybe he looks good up there. Maybe he
hitterish.
He stands confidently in the box, or something like that. And he does steal some bases, which is nice. But he's he's pretty close to just being a neutral player when it comes to his overall value because of how bad he is offensively.
Yeah, yes. But I do think when you take a step back and you look at the way the team is constructed, and by that I mean you have starting pitchers that give up contact, then maybe he's a little more valuable specifically for the 2024 Cardinals.
Right.
Because it's hard to quantify all that. That's more like big brain stuff, which we don't get into and can't get into. But I wasn't saying that to talk mess on Siani. It's more just like he's a hard player to pin down as far as like how valuable is he actually being, or is he overrated, underrated, or is he just fine? But yeah, anyways.
I think you'd be maybe a little surprised to know that he's like almost been a full WAR in value over his playing time, and that is exclusively off of defense. So it does show just how good he has been defensively.
I am surprised.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
There you go.
I feel better.
Well, let's switch over to some Cardinals returning from injury. Not all these people just re-injuring themselves left and right.
Yeah.
Lars Nootbaar, who has re-injured himself multiple times. But he is on track right now to return, all things, as long as he stays healthy at the end of his rehab here. He should be back within the next week or so, week and a half.
Yeah, I expect him to come back fairly soon. He's had a couple of good days of BP, seems to be bouncing back well physically. I think a healthy Lars coming back, I was kind of talking about the smoke and mirrors of this team and how I'm feeling about their production. An injection of Lars Nootbaar and Willson Contreras would really, really quell my queasy feelings about the St. Louis Cardinals offense and defense. He's a good outfielder as well. But, I think we've said it many times. I think that Lars is underrated. I think his offensive profile is fantastic. I think that if it's not this year, it's next year. He's going to really start to put it all together from a on-base power and base running point of view. I just really like everything about his game. The only thing he can't seem to do is stay healthy regularly. And that is a tool, a skill. Being available is very, very important. But I am bullish, to say the least, on Lars's return and what that means for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I agree. He's an interesting player because we just have not gotten like an extended period of him playing really well, and it's either been stalled by injury or his own inability to stay consistent. But you can see it, like you can see what a high-end Lars Nootbaar looks like. I'm thinking this comp gets thrown around a lot, but I think about like a Ben Zobrist, but for the outfield kind of guy. He doesn't necessarily do any one thing extremely well, but he does everything pretty well, and you can slot him into a lot of different places. And maybe
I agree with the Zobrist comp. I think I am of the opinion that we were seeing a new Lars from a power standpoint early this year.
Yeah.
And I am curious to see if he gets healthy and doesn't get hurt again, if that is going to be actualized or not. But he was hitting the ball a little bit harder. He was hitting the ball over the wall. And man, he hits some tanks. He's got some high exit velo. We'll see. Hopefully we'll see.
Nick Robertson activated as well, which is great. Need more arms. He's one of them.
Impossible to argue with that. He is absolutely one of them. I got no color to add to that other than, the Cardinals have leaned on their bullpen really, really hard this year. And this is kind of turned into one of those things where you need absolutely everything you can get from Nick Robertson and Chris Roycroft and Kyle Leahy and Fernandez. He's been pretty special, especially recently. You kind of need everybody to be pulling and performing. So yeah.
We briefly got to see the debut of Adam Kloffenstein.
Yeah.
Came up for a single inning.
Yeah.
Yeah, retires the side. Cool first game. I think we want to talk about that game in general here in a minute. But like, what a fun environment for your MLB debut.
Yeah. Funny way to handle it from a player management standpoint. I thought, like,
what?
we like you, like we traded for you. You're a guy, a guy that that the Cardinals have specified in acquiring and putting in AAA quickly and kind of being aggressive. And we're going to give you a cup of coffee. We're going to give you like a shot of espresso in a unique one-off, interesting environment. And we're not going to use you the way that you've been used in the minors. We're going to have you come in to relieve a pretty important inning against not a bad team, but not a great team. Weird time of the game, just weird all around. A weird player management. But he's on the 40-man. And has performed fine. So it's not cuckoo bananas. It's more just I'm not sure I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, maybe I like misread the entire situation, but when they announced that he was being brought up, I was like, "Oh, he's gonna start again.
He's gonna start." Yes, right.
Yeah. And then people have been calling for it. He makes the most sense to give a fifth spot to. It's like him or Reverse or something like that. So it's like, oh, cool, they did Kloffenstein, and then it was like felt like an hour later he's coming into the game, in at this weird little ballpark. Not saying, you know what I mean, like a weird little setting, just completely bizarre altogether.
And then is promptly sent back down, by the way.
Thanks for your time. Goodbye.
So I don't really have much else to say other than good for him. But
yeah. I mean, it's always fun for a debut, and he'll be back soon, I'm sure.
Totally.
But let's talk about the Rickwood game a little bit. Yeah. I'm going to do a tiny little rant first. If you follow us on social media, you might have seen this, I just, MLB is so stupid about access to the cool shit that their sport does. This was, I think, a really awesome thing, a really cool event, and it showcased something that MLB has over every other sport, this like deep history, complicated history, but deep and long and powerful and interesting. And I could not watch it. I could not watch the ceremony because I don't know, it was blacked out, I guess. I could not watch it on MLB.TV, the paid premium streaming service from MLB. The thing that you would think, if anywhere, this ceremony would be on their own platform, but it was not available to me. I was able to watch the game via my system of tricking my TV into thinking it's in a different part of the world. But the ceremony was not made available to me, or I don't know how people watch it other than their little local cable subscriptions.
I watched it after the fact,
and I'm like, how is this not? It's the same thing with the home run derby. This should be free on everything. I should be scrolling through Twitter and be like, oh, what's this? And be able to tap in and watch the ceremony. I should be on YouTube, and it should be presented to me as an ad of like, check out this ceremony highlighting the history of baseball. Like, this should be absolutely everywhere. It'd be a good way to get new and old fans engaged in the sport. And instead it's behind like some stupid ass cable company paywall or something. And I should have been able to watch it, but I could not. So anyway, rant aside, the game, the setting, the interviews, all of it I thought was amazing, and I really enjoyed watching it. And the thing is, it was cheesy, but I kind of loved it. Did you watch the inning where they did it in the old 4:3 aspect ratio?
I really liked it. I thought that was a lot of fun. I mean, if you're a baseball junkie, like probably most of the people that listen to this show, it's like we've watched all those old clips, and it was kind of fun to feel like we were in the 50s again, or we were watching Willie Mays. It was
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I'm pro all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, watching the game from the angle where they're showing the batter and pitcher from behind the catcher like they used to, rather than from behind the pitcher like they do now. It's like it just looks and feels so different.
Yeah.
And having the old typeface on the screen of the the balls and strikes and who's at bat and all of that. It was just a lot of fun. Like I wouldn't want to watch a full game like that nowadays, but having a single inning, and it was kind of a long inning. I thought it was awesome. I really, really enjoyed it.
When that type of production style was happening, was what they call the golden age of baseball. That is the production style that made America, or helped America, fall in love with baseball. So I thought, especially in a night that we're in Rookwood Field and we're celebrating some great players from the 40s and 50s and even further back, I thought it was appropriate, and they actually did something just for the sake of it being fun. So give me that in spades.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it was such a cool thing, and this should have been available to absolutely everybody. But yeah, I was happy the Cardinals were a part of it. That made it even more fun, though I'm sure I would have watched it either way.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a really, really cool, and I liked this one a lot better than Field of Dreams was fun, but this is such a different, it's such a different meaning to it.
It was fun, and I think that a lot of people have an emotional connection to that movie, and,
Sure.
and I think it's very, especially, if you had a parent that was into that movie and you're around our age, I think that it's pretty impactful, and even people older than us, I think that movie means a lot. But yeah, they should do a Rookwood Field game every year. They should highlight and celebrate a Negro League player, a player that played in the Negro Leagues and maybe played in MLB or not, every year, and bring that person's family out, celebrate them, talk about them, their achievements, talk about the troubles that they had. I thought, that Reggie Jackson interview was getting some heat around the game, and him kind of, what I thought was really impactful was that Reggie Jackson is not that old. Reggie Jackson, he's too old for us to have watched play in real life, but Reggie Jackson isn't that old. This didn't happen that long ago, and giving people like him the opportunity to discuss what he went through and how he got through it and who helped him. There was a lovely Dave Duncan shout out in his conversation that hopefully all Cardinals fans caught and we're proud of. I think it's extremely important. And like you said, there is baseball. While there are horrible parts of the history, I do think that I am of the belief that players like Jackie Robinson are some of the most important Americans of all time. And I think anytime you can celebrate those people, talk about their struggle, and bring it up, just saying their names is super valuable, just socially, and for our American soul and gumbo pot that we all share. So yeah, I love that shit. Also, I know I've talked about Bob Kendrick a lot recently on the show, but giving Bob Kendrick basically 2 innings to just share stories. That guy is the best storyteller. He knows all the names, everybody. So him telling stories about Willie Mays and Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige, and I could just listen to that ad nauseum. So yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, and let's not pretend like some of this shit doesn't still fucking happen to these players. And obviously it's way better now because of a lot of the people that were highlighted in this game. But it takes constant reinforcement to further reinforce the change that needs to happen. So really
did you see Barry Bonds in an interview said that he would have taken Satchel Paige deep?
I mean, if only,
oh yeah, if we could somehow time machine, whatever. I would love to see that, because maybe Barry Bonds, one of the best hitters of all time, steroids, so on and so forth. But the stories you hear about Satchel Paige, I don't know if he would let him. Like, I don't know, like he might just get a ball, in the hip.
Yeah.
But I thought that was pretty funny, and it just, I like Barry.
I like Barry Bonds too.
But man, oh man, you just like Barry. You got the swagger. I get it. I know you were Willie Mays was your godfather. I know you're
yeah.
I
if there's anyone who can try to like flex on Satchel Paige, I guess it's Barry Bonds. But
I just thought that was funny.
Yeah.
But all in all, like I said, I think they should do it every year. A great event, and it was so cool.
Yeah. All right. I think one last little topic before we hit the break and hit to the more league newsy stuff. But I think you've got a potential trade target you want to throw out.
Yeah, I kind of thought it'd be fun. We got obviously a handful of weeks before the trade deadline goes, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of pick on a player that to me makes sense as we kind of wind up. And I kind of went with, I think if there was a Cardinals shaped player trade draft that we could put on, I think that Eric Fetty would be probably the number one pick. Not because he's the best player potentially available, because he is the most Cardinals style player available. Yeah. And by that, I mean he's a 31-year-old KBO rehab project that is on a team-friendly deal and isn't particularly flashy. But I don't know if you've been paying attention to his numbers this year, Nate. He's been fantastic. So
he has been.
Eric Fetty, I want to highlight first, he spent all 2023 in the KBO, the Korean Baseball Organization. He threw 180 innings with a 2 ERA, and he was averaging over 10 strikeouts per 9. When he went over there, he essentially completely got rid of his cutter. He added a slider, so he really just took his cutter and slowed it down and gave it more tilt. And then he started leaning on his changeup. He had been throwing his changeup about 3% of the time. That has jumped up to about 15 to 20% of the time. And all these changes have translated to, he's only got half a season in MLB after making these changes, but he looks really good. And he's playing for the White Sox, who are really bad. He is the most obvious trade candidate, I think. And the Cardinals should absolutely be targeting him. I think it's a no-brainer, slam dunk connection. It really just comes down to how much do you want to spend on Eric Fetty.
Yeah, I suspect because of his quality that the White Sox will ask for it won't be cheap. This won't be a edge of your top 30 prospects type thing. But I think it is. I mean, this was a guy that a lot of people thought the Cardinals should have targeted.
Yeah.
It turns out everyone who thought that would have been correct. And he fits exactly what the Cardinals have typically targeted. So I think it'll just simply come down to if there's a bidding war for this guy, the Cardinals almost never win a bidding war. And what type of appetite do they have for spending? And is this the right guy? But it makes a lot of sense. It seems almost certain that he will be traded. So whether it's to the Cardinals or not, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, it feels like it would be a real big miss for the White Sox if they don't. And I think, when you're talking about who you trade to get an Eric Fetty, I think you're probably looking at names like Sajaci. Cesar Prieto is probably on that list. I think, the White Sox are going to want somebody who is close to the major leagues or could probably play in the major leagues very, very quickly. I don't think that, I mean to say, I think you can hold on to a Tink Hence while making this trade, but you might lose a Sajaci, a Roberse, and a Juan Bincho. It might be a package like that it takes to get him. Now, it should be called out that you would get a second year of Eric Fetty, if I remember correctly. He has, is it this year, all of next year?
I just looked it up. It's It's this year and next year, total $15 million. So super cheap.
Super cheap.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that we might be overstating it just because he doesn't have those strikeout numbers. I could see teams kind of balking at some higher prices. And like I said, I think the White Sox actually have more pressure on them to move him than any team has to acquire him, because what the White Sox have done to themselves this year.
Right.
But yeah, I just wanted to call, and we'll call out I think it'd be fun to just call out a different guy and highlight as the weeks go by. But yeah, that's my number one draft pick, Eric Fetty.
Well, excuse me. If you take a look at his StatCast, his Baseball Savant, more or less backs it up. He might be a little bit on the lucky side, but there's a fair amount of red there.
Yeah.
Expected ERA at a 3.4. It's a top 70% of the league. I think you'd be getting what you're paying for with him. And you're right. Maybe the market would be a little lower because he's not that, that power pitcher that people like to get. But I don't think he'd be cheap. I agree with you that it would not be like a Tinkens or something like that. Like Tinkens might be making the major league roster this year. So I can't imagine you'd do something like that. But yeah, it won't be cheap either. And frankly, if the Cardinals could do like a Sajasi and Reverse or something like that for Fetty, I think you'd take that in a heartbeat. Considering the team need and how good he has been.
Absolutely.
Which makes me think that probably won't be enough, if it's like a snap.
The case.
If you find yourself as a fan projecting a trade and you're like, oh hell yeah, then it's probably an unrealistic trade expectation. But you never know. We've seen Mozeliak pull off some silliness in years past, but the trade deadline is usually not where people are like fleecing someone.
I think it's really hard to predict this year, at least, sitting here in the middle or towards the end of June, of what the trade market is really going to look like, because there is such a lump of mediocrity in both leagues right now. It's really just going to come down to Atlanta's probably going to improve their team. The San Diego Padres are probably going to improve their team. Arizona's probably going to improve their team. And then everybody else, it's like a huge question mark to me. Like, are the Mets in it or not? Are Pittsburgh, are they going to wait until next year? Or the Nationals have been better than I thought they were going to be. Do they want to push in? I mean, they could trade for a pitcher, call up James Woods, and maybe that's a different team all of a sudden. I don't know. Maybe they call up Dylan Cruz too, and they just go full kiddo outfield and dominate the East for a minute. I don't know.
Counterpoint to our initial or our earlier conversation about it. That is supposed to be kind of the point of the extended playoffs, right? Is to make the trade deadline and this whole will they, won't they period a lot more exciting. That decision, do we go for it or not, is available to a lot more teams than it would be if it was just a few years ago. Where there was only one wild card spot. Even the Cardinals, we'd be right now like, should they go for it? Right. Can they beat the Brewers? But now with the they're in a playoff spot right now. So it's like, well, duh, fucking go for it. And but there's like 8 teams that are only a half game back of our current spot. So any one of them would be justified in going for it. But most. Unless you're the Padres, basically every other team is conservative in these sorts of moments. So I think you'll find that almost none of them will do anything. And it'll just be the top end getting better, which is typically what it is. And maybe one or two sort of mid level. When I say level, I mean where they are in the standings, teams deciding to go for it.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got some more series to talk about and some more league news to talk about. But before we do, we want to remind all of our listeners that this show is listener supported on Patreon. Patreon.com/talking about birds. Talking about boards. If you enjoy the show and want to support our effort that we put into bringing it to you every week, it takes a lot of work for us to be this stupid. And you want to support that, you enjoy it. We appreciate if you check out the patreon.com/talking about birds. There's multiple different levels, but it's pretty cheap. $2 a month is the lowest, and anybody who subscribes gets access to our private Discord server. It's the Bird Scored. We're in there chatting about the games, actively sort of What I love to do if I can is essentially what you used to call live tweeting, but I'm off that shit. Now I'm just in the Birds court all day.
I
And
like
it's
to
been a lot
live
more
post
fun.
on X.
Wow. Yeah, we do a lot of fun stuff in there. Our fantasy baseball league has been going strong. I'm in a dogfight for the last playoff spot. My team, which on paper just looks great, it has been struggling all year. Been almost immediately irrelevant as expected.
I had a strong draft.
But it's been a good league, and there have been some trades recently, which is awesome. People are out there trying to improve their teams, and it's been a lot of fun. I've got a hill to climb to defend my title, but it's not over yet. Anyway, patreon.com/talking about birds, and shout out to the fantasy team or fantasy league. Also, if you can't join the Patreon, or on top of joining the Patreon, if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, it really does help. It's one of the best ways to help people find our show. So, Hambone, where can people find us elsewhere?
Yeah, if you hear that clinking on mic, that is just Nate stirring his mid-afternoon cocktail. Don't worry about it. Glug, glug, right, buddy? You could follow us on Twitter at Talk About Birds.
Coffee, but yeah,
you
sure.
can follow us on Instagram at Talking About Birds. I realized recently that I thought I was posting on Instagram. I did not have the login stuff, so I'm back on Instagram. So apologies. Follow us there. We are there. We exist. We are real. You can listen to this show on Spotify if you prefer that. You can also listen to us on Talking About Birds, or on YouTube. We have a TikTok. Come on, check us out on TikTok. Nate, you're really dinging over there while I'm doing my read-through. Shut the hell up. You can find all of that information. Our Patreon. We have T-shirts that are great midsummer baseball gifts for that baseball fan in your life at talkingaboutbirds.com. And of course, you can always call us and leave a voicemail or send us a text message to 848-48-BIRDS. That is 848-482-4737.
Absolutely. And again, thanks to everybody who does, leaves voicemails or sends messages. We appreciate it. All right. So we've got a couple series coming up. We've got 4 games against the Reds in Busch. We've talked about the NL Central a lot already. We've talked about the Reds a fair bit amount already. There's a couple interesting things that are happening right now with the Reds. I think one is that they kind of live and die by Ellie right now, and Ellie is turning to maybe be a very streaky player.
Yeah.
And right now he's in the midst of quite a hot streak. Something like a 1.2 OPS over his last 10 games. And the 10 games before that, it was like a 550 OPS or something like that. So very, very streaky player. He's very hot right now. So keep an eye out for that. When he's hot, he's like maybe the most electric player in baseball. I'm a huge fan of watching Ellie De La Cruz.
Yeah.
And then Noelvi Marte, who was a bit of a breakout last year. And one of the many, many infielder high-end prospects that the Reds have, but was suspended for PEDs at the start of the year. He will be returning any day now. I don't know exactly how much it lines up with the Cardinal series, but I know he'll be back for a part of that.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for that. But otherwise, the Reds have been, we talked a lot about that. There's like they had probably the widest range of outcomes going into this year and what this team could look like. And unfortunately for them, and fortunately for us, it seems this universe we're seeing most of it's not really working right now for them, and they're not a particularly good team. And they play half their games at the bandbox that is Great American Ballpark, which I think really helps the way their team is built. But going into a more pitcher friendly environment like Busch, I don't really see them as a particularly dangerous team. Also, Lodolo is back on the IL, so we avoid one of their best pitchers. He's got blisters on his fingers.
All right.
Your turn. What do you see about the Reds?
Just had to land the plane that way, didn't you? Yeah, I don't know. I would say, these are, if I was living in St. Louis, I would be trying to buy tickets to this series because I think the Reds are really fun to watch. They have just some really fun performers, and they are, yeah, I think, like you said, very hit or miss. Ellie De La Cruz is the most exciting player in baseball for my money. He's a lot of fun. They still have some thumpers. But yeah, the team is kind of washed out to be in the middle. Hunter Green is the real deal. We've talked about him a handful of times this season. I don't know if you've seen this, Nate, but his last 2 starts, he has gotten sick. He's vomited on the mound.
I saw that.
So be on
but
puke
I didn't
watch, especially if it's hot
I
in St.
didn't
Louis.
follow up on any of that. Was he just, he's so amped up, he's puking, or
He has claimed that he has overhydrated himself with the hot summer months in the Midwest coming up. We all know you're trying to do everything you can to prepare yourself. He is claiming he's overhydrated himself. So,
dude, it is hell in St. Louis right now. Like, literally, it has been extreme heat. So today has been a little bit of a break because of the rain. But
well, if you're curious, the high in Denver today is 82 degrees. The sun is shining, and we got a light wind coming through. It's gorgeous.
Wow. But you're also closer to the sun, so
it's a great point.
You gotta look out for that.
All right. But yeah, the Reds are a fine team that are fun to watch. Is really, I think, all I have to say. Cardinals playing, like you said, the Cardinals playing them 4 games at home should be success, especially the way the Cardinals are playing recently.
Yeah, I'm trying to get out of the prediction game when it comes to these individual series, but I do see this as, I don't see this as a particularly threatening team coming in for a 4-game series against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Right after that, the Cardinals will go to Pittsburgh for 2 games.
3 games.
3 games against the Pirates. So we got some NL Central back-to-back.
Oh, blood match, boxing match, going after each other.
Yeah. What are you seeing out of the Pirates? Right, we've talked about the Pirates.
We've talked. Yeah, there's not much else to say. Paul Skeens is real. Jared Jones is real. Mitch Keller, solid pitcher. Their pitching is ahead of their hitting. These guys are going to be a pain in the Cardinals' ass for years to come. The offense just hasn't come together. I will call out, Brian Reynolds has been really hot recently. He's got I think a 20-something game hit streak going right now. And I really like him as a player. I think he is fantastic and maybe a touch underrated. O'Neal Cruz can obviously lean into one every once in a while. And outside of that, the offense really hasn't been that impressive. We'll get to see Kutch again, which is always fun. But yeah, this team, it's really pitching, starting pitching, those 3 guys, and then the team is lagging behind them. But yeah, not too much to add. We just saw them. I think we know what they are, and just try to not get blown up while you're facing those pitchers, and the Cardinals should have a good time.
Yeah, I'm a little worried. So if you look under the hood for O'Neal Cruz, I feel like the outburst is coming soon.
Yeah, I mean, he's amazing.
So, I think he's gotten a little unlucky. He's been below his expected WOBA so far, but listen to this. 99th percentile for average exit velocity, 100th percentile for bat speed, 98th percentile for barrel percentage, and 95th percentile for hard hit percentage. His problem is that he's also he's in the bottom 4% of strikeout percentage and the bottom 8% on whiff percentage. So he swings at everything. But there's almost no one in baseball who's hitting the ball harder and when he hits it with more consistency than him. And so I think it still takes a little bit of skill development to hone that swing in. So it's not just luck. He needs to be better in a couple areas. But even just a little bit of luck coming his way, and we're going to see like 10 home runs in 2 weeks from him or something.
Yeah.
He's a lot like Ellie,
in
that way. These
massive,
gigantic monsters.
Toolsy shortstops with the last name Cruz. They are very similar.
Yeah.
Somehow O'Neal Cruz is bigger than Ellie, who is like 6'5". But yeah, I agree. He is special, and man, he hit a line drive home run into the Allegheny last week. We've seen some home runs go into the river before, but his there was no arc to it. It was just a bullet.
Yeah. Well, and it was only like the 7th that's gone into the Allegheny too. It hasn't happened that much.
Yeah.
And yeah, like a laser shot out of the park.
Yeah, he's amazing. I thought Jack Sawinski would have a better 2024. That hasn't really happened, at least to this point.
Nick Gonzalez, their second baseman, has been he's been pretty good. I think better than probably people are realizing. He's just still kind of in that small sample size range. And he's on the Pirates, so not as many people are watching. But he's been pretty good too. So like the offense, you can see what a good Pirates offense looks like. It's like a lot of the bones are there. They're just not. Most of them are pretty young, and they're not getting the production yet.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, let's talk about some.
Trying to think of something with like skull and crossbones or something piratey and bones related, but I didn't.
The only thing better than a good bit is explaining the framework for a bit that you've been thinking through.
Well, I wanted the people to know that I am trying, but I am failing.
Yar. My daughter's playing baseball, and I guess the it's through the YMCA, and they clearly get some sort of like discount on hats from like probably MLB or some local MLB affiliate. So for 2 years in a row, she's been the Pirates, and she gets like an actual Pittsburgh Pirates hat. And the other team they had their first game last week, and the other team she was playing was also the Pirates.
Pirates versus Pirates.
Yeah. So good. That was pretty funny. And they're all just running around wearing Pittsburgh Pirates hats.
It's a good hat.
It is a good hat.
I think the Pirates I like the Pirates uniforms. I think it's classic.
Too.
Yeah. But that's very funny and adorable.
I was just yelling, "Go Pirates!"
Yeah. I hope everybody does well.
Yep. Actually, so she's she's playing like first grader, second grader baseball. So it's mostly everyone gets a chance to hit, and that they kind of run it that way. But we had in the game, or it was in the game, the first time a kid hit the ball, a kid fielded it and ran to first base and beat the runner. Nice. And it was the first actual out I've seen from almost 2 years of being a part of, very little league baseball, which is normal. It's a really tough game for 6 and 7 year olds. So, but it was just like, oh my God, was that? It was like an actual out. It was a play. And there was like 6 of us in the stands that were like, recognized that an actual baseball play had just happened, and there was an actual out had been recorded. They didn't actually record it. The kid stayed at first. It's all it's all super little league development stuff, but it was like baseball. There was baseball. It just happened. It was kind of fun.
That's good. Adorable.
Yeah. All right, league news.
Yeah, just a couple of things to talk about. The Phillies and Christopher Sanchez have agreed to a 4-year extension. Good for him. Good for them. I think this is probably a smart move at a good time.
Yeah, he's good. He's just one of those guys. It makes sense to lock up. Obviously, the Phillies have fantastic pitching, and they probably will for a while. They're obviously doing something well over there. They keep managing to extend their guys and keep putting together pretty good pitching staffs.
I mean, if you're from a player standpoint, who wouldn't want to be a part of that team right now? It seems fun. They hit bombs. They have star power. The fans are out there every day. It seems great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bryce Harper made such a big deal about like signing a 13-year deal. And then Aaron Nola was like, took a team-friendly deal almost immediately, said he didn't even really try to sign with any other team. He was just like, I'm going to be a Philly. Obviously they're doing something well over there.
The vibes are good.
The vibes are good.
Mets and their superstar closer, Edwin Diaz, got ejected for sticky stuff on his hand and will face a 10-game suspension. He did not appeal it, so he's just going right out of there. I think that this is I think it's a big deal because it's the Mets' third time getting called for sticky stuff this year. They are playing well, and they are losing arguably one of their best players at a very crucial time in the season. And I don't know if you saw the pictures. It was egregious. It looked like his hand looked like a pile of sticky stuff. And then there was maybe some hand underneath it. I was kind of shocked by this. What's happening in New York? It is, really thought that when Cohen bought the Mets, that the tides were going to change for the Mets. And they just can't stop Metsing.
They're an accursed team.
Ponska, it just,
I don't know.
Just keeps happening.
Maybe it turns out, he was willing to spend money on his team, but he's also a horrible person who probably should be in prison for a lot of different reasons. I'm not just making that up. Look up Steve Cohen and the variety of things that he's been charged with and gotten away from. I don't know, maybe putting a shady billionaire in charge of your team isn't the path to sudden success.
See, I think he's more of a lesson of if you crime so hard that you get billions and billions of dollars, that you can just pay your way out of it. If the fine...
It's a real success story.
If the fine for the crime is less than the money you're going to make from it, then do it. That's the American way.
That is the American way. And it happens a lot.
All right. Last piece of news I wanted to talk about is that our Colorado Rockies walked off a game. Ryan McMahon was up to bat. Walked off a game earlier this week on a pitch clock violation against the Nats pitcher. It was the first time in MLB history that a game has ended on a walk-off pitch clock violation. So history has been made. The Rockies were able to add a win to their total. Let's go.
Man, isn't that what we all have dreamt about when you think about America's pastime? A wonderful summer evening. You got the family, you're having hot dogs and beer in the bottom of the ninth. And a walk-off.
Rocky's best player up.
Yeah, you get a walk-off pitcher violation. Isn't that the dream of this sport?
MLB is very lucky that this happened in a mid-June Rockies-Nats game and not a more important game with more eyes on it. Because I bet most baseball fans didn't even know that this happened because of where and when it happened. But
Abner Doubleday out there is, he's celebrating in his grave as baseball, really is truly represented that evening.
We should dig him up.
We should dig him up. Dig up, bring back Doubleday.
Bring him back.
Bring him back. Bring back Doubleday.
That's all I got for league news this week.
That does suck. I mean, it was inevitable, right?
Yeah, it was going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Ben. Well, the trade deadline is approaching, and we're going to start. We've already in this episode started talking about contracts and team deals and whatnot. So it got me thinking. It's been quite a while since we've done a game that I think you particularly love. A little game that I call "You Income, You Lose Some."
Oh my God! There we go. Look at you are on it today.
All right.
You did not look like your brain rebooted for about 2 seconds when you were trying to do that. You look great.
You have it written in front of me. I was like, what the fuck is the name of this game? All right. So the way this works is I've got the total earned income from a series of former members of the St. Louis Cardinals. And you have to guess how much they made in their career.
Historically very bad at this game.
Yeah, I mean, this is tough. I think it's more just interesting and we turn it into a game. I think it's very, very challenging to get these right. But I think it's interesting to see some shockers and just kind of how crazy the game has grown.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going way back. A guy that I mentioned in the episode with Dan Zimborski. Great name. Dazzy Vance.
Dazzy Vance.
This guy, I'm going to give you a little bit more information than I've given in the past on some of these. So what I'll say is Dazzy Vance played in the major leagues from 1915 to 1935. So he spent about 20 years in the majors.
Okay.
From 1915 to 1935.
20 years. Okay. I'm so bad at this game. I am going to say that he made $98,000 over his career.
It's a good guess. He actually did fare better than that, though. I think it's the 20 years it stacked up.
Yeah.
He made $169,000.
Wow.
$249.
Chip Carey over here.
Man, ever since you've called that out, I can't. It's. Yeah, I mean, it is every game.
He does it all the time. Anytime the number
calls out this. Yeah,
so weird. We need to get him on the pod and what the hell is this about?
That's if we ever get Chip Carey on the pod.
That's the one question. I don't care about anything else. I don't care about his relation with his famous grandfather. I don't care. I just want to know, what is this?
Chip, thanks so much for joining today. What the deal with the 69 pitch thing?
I need answers.
Yeah. Okay. So you were close, kind of.
Relatively closer than I have been previously in this game.
I'll give you that. Okay. The first guy was Dazzy. This guy's Dizzy. Dizzy Dean. He pitched from 1930 to 1941. He was in the bigs for 11 years.
Yeah. This sucks. 11 years, that time period. I'm going to say that he made $555,000 over his career.
Now you're way high again.
Damn it.
Yeah. He actually only made $112,000.
That makes no sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so I don't know the economics of baseball at this time. But he did. He made 50,000 less than Dazzy Vance, but he also pitched 10 years less than Dazzy Vance. So, there's obviously that, like, it's the last year, the end of your career where you make the most amount of money usually, or the middle end. Right. And so since he kind of had a shorter career, I think it's just not nearly as much. I mean, the dude pitched like 330 innings, like 6 years in a row. And so I think he just burned himself out.
Fair enough.
All right. So we started in the 10s through the 30s, from the 30s through the 40s. Now, arguably one of the most famous Cardinals of all time, Red Schoendienst. He played in the majors from 1945 to 1963.
1945 to 1963. Okay. So man. I'm gonna guess $450,000 over his playing career.
It's funny, your previous guess for Dizzy would have been almost exactly right.
Okay,
so you're kind of close again on this one. So he made $551,300.
Wow. I should have just guessed 555 again. Damn it.
Yeah. It should be said, I should have said this at the beginning, probably not for Red, but for Dazzy and Dizzy, a lot of this is estimate, since not all of this was like totally public information. I think once you get into like the 40s and beyond, into the more modern era, the information is more readily available. But anyway, Red made $550,000, which is probably a pretty good chunk for the time period.
I would say so.
I think this is when you're starting to get into the range of like ball players are like, this is their entire life. They can make a living off of it. All right. Moving along, famous Cardinals, Ted Simmons. He played from 1968 to 1988. So 20 years, including getting into the 80s.
Yeah. Obviously a great player. You get into the 80s. little more money starts raking in. I am going to guess, and I hate this game. Makes me feel so stupid. I'm going to guess he made $13 million over his career.
You're way high again.
Damn.
So he made $4 million.
Wow.
$6,700.
This game's impossible. I hate it. Can we be done with it?
Well, I got one more for you. Here's a fun one. Mark McGwire. He played from 1986 to 2001. So him and Ted Simmons overlap by 2 years.
Right.
Ted Simmons made $4 million. How much did Mark McGwire make?
I don't know. I'm going to say $95 million.
You're high again. Yeah. Percentage wise, I don't know. Yeah, $74,688,354. So $75 million.
Yeah.
But I just think that's so crazy. Like, I mean, I know this isn't like a new topic or anything, but I just think it's so interesting that like Ted Simmons, who played for 20 years, whose career overlaps with Mark McGwire. Ted Simmons elected through the Veterans Committee, but still he's a member of the Hall of Fame. And Mark McGwire, who by rights should be, Mark McGwire made $70 million more than Ted Simmons.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Good for you, Mark. I'm sure Ted's fine, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you think $4 million in the 80s is probably 10, 12 now. And of course, just being a very famous athlete, I think, he's probably been in 1 million commercials or like 1,000 car dealerships of,
we're not worried about Ted Simmons. He's got great hair. So, I mean, that alone should set him up for a good life.
Yeah. That's all it takes generally.
That's what I found for.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was you income, you lose some.
Worst game ever.
And that'll be it for this week of Talking About Birds. Thanks again to everyone who listens, sticks with us, and makes it all the way to the end. Go ahead and figure out time to sign up for the Patreon. Patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. We'll be back next week. As always, as we see the Cardinals maybe cement a above 500 record. I sure hope so.
Wow.
Not going great in the current Braves game, but hey, still plenty of baseball left. Anyway, we'll be back next week. Thanks, everyone. And until next week, go Cardinals.
Love you guys.